Greetings, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Friday, farting around and changing a bunch of shit and farting around some more and fart. Tonight we are going to, well, I'm going to be like nut and bolt checking. I guess we don't have any nuts or any bolts on these things. I'm going to be screw checking couple of the builds that I need to use tomorrow for a live event broadcast gig in Anniston, the Criterium Racing. What started it all? Fourth year in a row, I think. Maybe just 3 years in a row. But I think fourth. I think this will be the 4th year that I'm covering the Anniston, Alabama America Criterium Cup. Pro men's and women's criterium race and some of the amateur stuff as well. So yeah, that's I'm excited for that, as I always am. And I flew all 4 of these. There's really no reason for me to grab 4. Don't mind me while I just pick my wedgie. I flew all 4 of these today. They're all still good to go. But, I mean, mainly this one. Like, this is the rig that I fly 90%, if not, like, 98%. So this is the main one that before every event, I just like to put a 1.5 millimeter MIP driver on every single screw to make sure it's tight. But this is kind of like, this is the backup rig based on the QAV Pro 2.5. It's much less efficient, but it's a perfect backup rig because it's a lot more durable. This is the version 1, I think, AOS 2.5, and the efficiency is great, and the black box logs are super clean, but the way that these guards are out here, basically, if you crash this, you break the frame. If you crash this from almost any height, the guards break, and so yeah, it's having two of these would be kind of sketchy, right? Because like fly this, if I crash it and break it, put this up in the air for the rest of the event, come home, fix this. With two of these, if I have a crash and then I put the back up in the air and I have another crash, I'm screwed. So that kind of sucks. For when I'm not flying over people, I bring the Tooth Fairy 2, and I can put a GoPro in it. This is the basically high wind configuration, essentially, with these silly looking guards here. This is like a third level backup. Technically can't fly this over people, but like God forbid both of these rigs go down, as long as I don't fly this above people and like keep my distance from the riders and whatnot and don't cross over the audiences. Yeah, this is not sub 250, which is why it's technically not legal to fly over people. Also, the other problem with this is there's a little bit of this in view of the FPV camera. So that's why it's kind of third level backup for the live flying stuff. This is mainly for throwing the GoPro in and getting some B-roll for the TV truck to make, you know, before the event they grab a bunch of B-roll from us and they cut together little like 15-second, 20-second, 30-second, 60-second segments that they can put where they need them for their live stream, just like kind of filler stuff. And so, yeah, this is coming with me. And I think since I drive to this event, I can bring sort of everything. I think I'm also going to bring this. This is version Gen 1. I don't even remember what this is called. AOL, great. AOS, something or other. That I've got these really cool Gep RC old school ducts on. And so, yeah, this thing is ultra efficient because it runs 3-inch props in here. And it's got the cool little holder up front for the Insta360 Go too. So yeah, the fleet is here. I'm going to change the propellers on this. I'm going to get these Gemfan 3035s off and put HQ 3x3x3s on. And so I actually don't need this here. I got to switch the props and then I'll bolt check it after I do that. You know, I do want to throw this battery on the charger, though. Hang on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I charge up all of the goggle batteries and shit. There we go. I charge up all like the goggle and the transmitter batteries, but I don't charge any of the flight batteries. I do that as soon as I get to the event. And so all of the 4S 850s that I fly on these things, I don't like to leave them charged overnight. The other thing that we're going to do tonight is mad changes to a bunch of tiny whoops. Oh, really? Why you got to do me like that? Why is this camera dead? Both these cameras are dead. What the hell's going on? Logitech C922. What's happening? What's your deal? C922. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's that one. And then what about this one? Why did this happen? I mean, I did unplug them. I guess I wasn't allowed to unplug them. Hey, there we go. So I've got this overhead camera on a different mount. And as you can see, it is now much closer. And it is also completely out of focus. Why is it struggling so bad on focusing? Let's bring up Camo Studio real quick here and see what the hell's going on. So C920, why is it so soft? It looks terrible. What on earth? Well, there we go. That's a lot better. So yeah, we've got a little bit more of a close-up view with this cam. Let's see what happens when I quit this. Nope, it locks the focus in. Awesome. So yeah, we got a little bit of a closer view here because I've got a different mount. And I'm also using this as a ring light. Now that I have a different mount, I can use this Glip Glop without the lens in it here as a little bit of a ring light. So we've got like crazy even lighting here. almost like a microscope. So there's that, which is cool, right? Right? Nah. In the chat, Kevin Sumner was first. What's up, brother? Northern Tier, Troy Prelog, Gippsland Drone Flyers, Cole Powers, Chaser FPV. Eva is in the house. What's up? How are you? And Izzy doing up there in New Jersey? You lucky bastards. Neurone, Northern Tier, Fizz PV, Louie, Flycadelic, Mikhail H, Brent Anderson, Frosty, Ra FPV, Uriel, Notice. Timmons is here as well. What's up, dude? Bunch of old school motherfuckers. Thanks for coming, people. Timmons tagged me and said, what's up? Just checking in on my layover. Where are you going? Mikhail says, can you run down the rig from the intro footage? I assume close to Mobula 704. No, not even remotely Mobula 704. Completely custom, as light as possible, 1S 04 build. So very similar to the other RC drift car chasing rigs that I've built in the past. Newbie Drone Cockroach V3 frame, which is absolutely required because it has the hooks molded into it. And then the remixed, Timmons's remixed Batwing mount for the 04 uses those hooks to mount up front here. O4 Lite, micro V antenna, the Beta FPV 1S Matrix 3-in-1, I think they call it. It's the only 1S AIO that works with 04 right now. And then when I flew that, it was on Tiny Whoop 0702 36,000 kV Firefly motors. It's now on Weebleed 0702 32,500 kV motors for a little bit more in the quest for a little bit more runtime. So Wednesday of next week, I'll fly this again, and we'll see if I can get beyond 2 minutes and 20 seconds of runtime with it. I think I should be able to. The live stream we did on Wednesday, we did a little bit of myth busting with higher and lower kV motors and took a look at efficiency. And I was actually really surprised at how much more efficient the lower kV motors were, even when I motor limited the higher kV motors. I did not have that experience when I tested this thing on 5-inch rigs way back when. I saw no difference in runtime, no difference in flight characteristics when I had 2400 kV motors motor limited down on 6S to be the same kV as 1600 kV motors on 6S with 5-inch rigs. I assume that. So now that I've had some time to think about it, I think there's two things going on. I think with Tiny Whoops at 1S, 40,000 kV is just absolutely bananas. Like it's just an absurd amount of kV. So even with motor limiting, I think that 40,000 kV is just so nutty that when you compare that to 32,000 kV with basically no motor limiting, it's just crazy. That difference in kV is just so big. I think that if we compared like 32,000 kV to 28,000 kV, I think it would be an awful lot closer. So that's one. Two, which I think is really important, is that with these tiny little motors, it's extremely difficult to balance the number of winds per stator pole with the thickness of the copper. And my guess is that on 5-inch rigs, like on some of these little rigs, there's only like 6 or 7 winds per stator pole. The higher the kV, the less number of turns there are around each stator pole. It's really important when you go up in kV to increase the thickness of the wire, because otherwise you put less turns of wire and you lose a lot of copper density on the stator poles, and that's not good. That is something that will absolutely make a motor less efficient. On 5-inch rigs with like 2306s, which is what I did that test on, you've got like 20-30 winds per stator pole, and Also, with 5-inch rigs, the quality control is just a lot better, right? We're paying 25, 26 bucks per motor versus like 8, 9, 10 bucks per motor. Um, and so my guess is that on the 5-inch motors, they're they they're a lot they're using they're optimizing the motor for the specific kV. So when I was testing those 2400 kV motors, they had the correct thickness of copper for the number of winds. And then when I was testing the 1600 kV motors, they also had the correct thickness of copper for the number of winds. And so like the total amount of copper in both of those motors was the same. With tiny whoop motors, I don't think they can. I don't think that there are enough different gauges of wire for them to be able to optimize the amount of copper in the stator. B, well, no, yeah, that's just the main thing. I think, well, B, they're so much less expensive. They're just trying to get them out. And so, you know, if they spent enough extra time to... So, like, the machines that wind these motors, if you're going to run... The cheap way to do it, if like, oh, I don't know, you're going to sell a motor for 10 bucks instead of 26, 27, 28, is to set the machine up with the thinnest gauge of wire that will work for all of the different KVs. And then you do 100 of the one KV, you do 100 of the next KV, 100 of the next KV, and away you go. The right way of doing it is to retool the machine for each individual KV. So that on the really high kV motors, you have a thicker gauge of wire. I don't think that there are enough differences in the thickness of the gauge of wires with like 6 turns versus 7 turns. But B, with these motors being so inexpensive, I don't think that they can put the time in to retool the machine every single time. Otherwise, they would have to charge us 15, 20 bucks per tiny whoop motor, and none of us would do that, right? And so, yeah, I think it's both of those reasons that we saw such a drastic difference in, and I mean, like, it wasn't actually that drastic. It was like it was an average of 25 seconds, which for a cinematic rig, yeah, that matters. And so all of these RC drift car chasing rigs are going to lower kV motors. So like I said, on the O4 rig, I moved it from 36,000 kV down to 32,000. On the HD0 rig, what did I do? On the HD0 rig, I actually stole the 28,000 kV motors off of the analog rig because I'm really struggling to get runtime from the HD0 AIO5. So I'm going to try these really low kV motors on here next Wednesday. I actually pulled apart the Transrights or iBites pink and light blue freestyle rig because I just don't fly it all that often. And I put those motors, which are the Moon Travelers, which are 32,000 kV, onto the analog 2G4 Runcam Nano 3 rig. So we're gonna fly this, and I also switched on a TrueRC ultra short singularity antenna. So this is good to go. We're just gonna fly this around, and we'll see what the runtime is like. I'm super curious what the runtime will be like. And then on some of these other builds over here, I'm just gonna be kind of changing things up. On basically all of my freestyle rigs are gonna go just totally nuts on kV. I have a bunch of 40,000 and 36,000 kV motors, and those are all going to go onto the freestyle rigs because runtime doesn't really matter on those, right? The freestyle rigs I fly here, I don't care if I only get 2.5 minutes of runtime, land it back on my desk, pull the battery, throw a new one in, and right back up in the air, right? It doesn't matter at all. The cinematic rigs, and I like having extra power, right? The extra power for the freestyle rigs is really, really nice. It allows me to do... It gives me more hang time because I can blip the throttle even quicker and then let that thing hang up in the air. And hang time is one of the things that we really struggle with trying to freestyle tiny whoops and do the off-throttle moves, the Matty flips, the power loops, all that the wall rides, all that nonsense, right? So, yeah. Bunch of motor changes, bunch of kind of, you know, let me switch this camera around over here, over there, everywhere. I've kind of given up on beta FPV AIOs for these like cinematic analog rigs. One of beta FPV's main weak points with their tiny whoops are the VTXs. I've had a lot of beta FPV VTXs die. The ones that don't die, they just have like electrical noise. They're just not all that clean. The HappyModel 2G4, the HappyModel Mobula 6 2024 AIO struggles with the same thing. It's got like diagonal lines in the video. Makes sense. It's a thinner PCB. It's a lighter weight AIO. They've removed capacitance to do that. And when you remove capacitance, you get more electrical noise. The 2G4 is just, you know, God's gift to tiny whoops, and it gives me like a really clean, really clean analog video feed. And so that's what's in this. And I've got another one here. I had another 2G4 floating around, so I'm going to do another 2G4 build, but with a CO3 camera. So I'll have one with the Runcam Nano 3. That camera is a little bit more zoomed in, and then one with the CO3, which is zoomed out a little bit. And just, you know, when we did all of the Tiny Whoop camera testing, everybody kind of agreed that the CO3 was the best looking of the cameras. So yeah, I'll have two awesome little analog RC drift car chasing rigs. Super fun. If you are going to go out and chase RC drift cars, which you absolutely should, if you're going to do it for fun, do it with an analog rig. The decrease in weight makes it so much easier to stick with those little bastards as they change directions all over the place. If you're doing it to make a fancy edit like I have been lately, sure. O4 is absolute god. Walk Snail is really good. HD0, like, I'm going to do an edit just for the sake of doing an edit with it, but I will probably not ever do an edit with HD0 footage. I will absolutely fly this HD0 rig for fun because it's super low latency. Especially if I can get some runtime out of it, but analog is really the way to go. Hold on, I can't have this beep the whole stream. It literally makes it easier for you, and chasing those little guys is incredibly difficult. So yeah, make life a little bit easier on yourself. My parents came and hung out last night, which was very cool, and I had my birthday celebration, which was amazing, because look at this. Look at me having something that's current. I almost never have the current tech. I almost always have 1 or 2 generation old technology. But with the O4 system requiring Goggles 3 to do race mode, yeah, I put these on my wish list, and my parents were cool enough to snag them for me for my birthday. So yeah, happy birthday to me. I'm gonna wait to use them because Mads Tech found that weird bug with elrs, and I don't necessarily want to put this onto some development firmware yet. So I'm gonna wait for like the next version of the elrs firm. I mean, I'm gonna try these next week when I get back and things are a little bit calmer. I'm gonna try them to see if I have that weird elrs range problem. Maybe I won't. But yeah. This is super exciting. These are also going to be what I use for so this is going to be the last time that I run this live broadcast setup with the old school Vistas. After this, it's going to be O4 stuff. I went on Get FPV and panic bought a couple of O4 Pros before the tariffs make them I think 50% more expensive, which is absolutely insane. But I mean, I'm sure that it'll definitely benefit all of us. I mean, we will obviously all get raises at work and be making lots and lots more money to offset the fact that every single thing that we're going to be buying is soon going to be 25 to 50% more, right? I mean, that's obviously what's going to happen. The biggest liar ever couldn't possibly be lying to us. There's no chance of that, obviously. I mean, he definitely didn't lie to us for 4 years straight previously, right? Like, that would just be crazy to suggest that. And so, yeah, there's that. So, yeah, I've got 2 O4 Pros coming. And then I also snagged... so, yeah, there aren't many frames that you can put the O4 in. I was trying to wait for something other than the new AOS V5 frames because they're kind of ugly. But I haven't really seen anything that's sort of like in this vein come out. So I bit the bullet, and I'm gonna have ugly builds. I got a AOS Cine 30 and 35. So the FAA kind of changed the rules, and if you put a waiver in through their website, you're allowed to run all the way up to 400 grams now and fly over people. I think that I can actually build the 30 to be under sub 250 just in case I don't. I put the waiver in and it doesn't get. So for the record, all of the so like with all of the cuts to everything that makes any sense to keep anyone safe or alive, apparently the FAA has had huge cuts, and so cinematic pilots who've been having like 30 or so day turnarounds on them putting waivers in are now seeing upwards of like 120 days before the waivers get approved. So we're back to this bullshit. But yeah, but because of that, I'm gonna move away from the 2.5, and I have 2.5 inch builds. If for some reason I have one of these live broadcast events and I absolutely have to be below sub 250, these aren't necessarily going anywhere. And so like I've got the 2.5 inch thing, but I'm gonna move forward with 3 inch and 3.5 inch. And that'll be pretty cool because this event in Anniston, Alabama, I really struggle with runtime because of the wind. The wind is really nasty at this event. They have that massive American flag that's like straight out sometimes. And so getting into 3 inch and 3.5 inch will really help out with that. On the 3.5 inch rig, I'm actually going to run bi-blades. I'm really excited about that. Really try to get some runtime back with that thing. And so that'll be interesting. What'll also be cool is that both of those rigs, much more so the 3.5 inch rig, will be big enough and powerful enough to carry a GoPro. And so it'll be kind of like a nice little dual purpose rig. But with the O4 on board, I won't really need to carry a GoPro around, which will be super nice. And so, yeah, that'll be kind of cool. I think what I'm going to do is I'm finally going to bite the bullet and do a naked GoPro. I've got a Hero 6 that I've just been hoarding, and I've got the board that I need for the to turn it into a naked GoPro. So if I can do that and then figure out how to get a mount set up, that'll be super cool for an ultra lightweight kind of setup. Dronzen says the last 2 waivers COAs I applied for flying in zero grid have been approved in less than a week. Oh my god, okay. Well, that's amazing. I've been kind of shocked, honestly. I love that. I'm not super into... I spend as little time on Facebook as I possibly can. But for whatever reason, I was on there the other night, And within like a couple of minutes of scrolling through my feed, there were 2 posts from cinematic drone and cinematic FPV groups of people bitching about waivers taking forever all of a sudden. So I don't know. Who knows? It's all just a big shit show. The long and short of it, from what I've seen being in this world for quite a while, is that if you are responsible and if you're not that guy, you're going to be totally fine. Like if you have any common sense and you care about safety at all, you're going to be completely fine. It's the people that blatantly like fly non-prop guarded 5-inch rigs over like stadium crowds and shit like that. Like those are the guys that the FAA really comes down on. And it really feels like you have to screw up a bunch of times in a row for them to even care at all. So, I'm a super safety conscious person, and I will probably be totally fine. So, yeah, is what it is. I also got some really cool audio gear, which will be super fun upstairs. I just got to get a replacement set of speakers for the living room because the one is blown up. Craig says, howdy everyone, glad to be here. Eva says, we're good, scrambling to get ready for Chasing Drift tomorrow. Nice. Neuron says, found a Nano 3, did a 65, put RC and Bauer, 0702, 29,000, damn the kill the battery, but rip like hell. Any suggestions for an in-between, a little more efficient? Thanks. Yeah, the RC and Power 0702 29,000s are the most powerful. They're not the least efficient, but they're not efficient at all. They're a really interesting motor. They're at 29,000 kV. They're probably like the HappyModel equivalent of maybe like 33,000, maybe 34,000 kV. They're a super interesting motor. They have tons of power and tons of grunt. But then if you sit at full throttle, it doesn't have the top speed of these crazy kV HappyModel motors like the 40,000s and the 36,000s. So those RC and Power motors are really cool because they accelerate up to their top speed really fast, but then they get there and then they just kind of sit. If the 40,000 kV motors go like 45 miles an hour, those RC and Powers probably only go like 35 miles an hour. They just don't have the RPM. And so for me, it's the HappyModel motors are like the end all be all. They're more efficient. Like they make the same amount of power as a lot of these other motors, but then they're a little bit more efficient. And they're, we've been using them forever. The motor shafts are a little bit thicker. One of the problems I had with the RC and Power motors is that they've undersized the 1mm motor shaft a little bit, which is just insane because it's already fragile. And so, yeah, HappyModel / TinyWhoop / WeBleedFPV 0702 36,000s or 40,000s, or even the 32,500s or the 32,000s. Those, for me, are just the god motors for really good power, but also really decent efficiency. They are, like, I have tested all of the motors that exist, and every single rig that I custom build is on HappyModel motors, to give you an idea. Like, if the Beta FPV or the VCI or the RC and Power motors were better, I would still be running them. But I've tested them, and then I've put them all up for sale on the Etsy store. Hey, that reminds me, CiottiFPV.com is how you support me. It sure means a lot, and it's super important for me to be able to continue doing this full time. So those of you that support me, thank you so much. Those of you that don't, please consider it, because things are going to get a little nasty here with everything that's going on politically, and inevitably I am going to lose patrons, and I would really love to continue doing this. I think that the niche that I have found with Tiny Whoops, as things get bad, is going to be kind of the only way that people can continue to afford to fly FPV. So, help me. Like, I'm certain that I'm gonna take a huge hit. And so if you have $3 a month, right? Like, it's not a lot, and I can almost guarantee you that I will save you more than $3 a month by telling you what to buy and what not to buy. Jump onto my Patreon and you're going to get a ton of benefits. It's the coolest community, lots of awesome people, and it's the only way that I can keep doing this full time. If I have to go get an office job, this is going to turn into like maybe one live stream a week, maybe two. The biggest problem is going to be that I'm going to be exhausted, and I'm not going to be able to test much stuff. And so like the way that I've been able to put out the amount of good info and do the amount of testing is because of how many of you have chosen to kind of support me. And it's been really, really cool. And I would love to continue doing this because like my mental health is so much better doing this full time. Even though this is super difficult and this is super time consuming, I'm doing something that doesn't make me miserable. And so, yeah, from like a mental health perspective, I'm more than willing to make a lot less money doing this full time than what I can make with, you know, my degree or you know, my past job experience as a project manager. I just, you know, need you all to throw in a couple of bucks here and there. Speaking of, Sean Williams, thank you for joining the Gangly Gang. Yannick B, welcome to the gangliest of all the gangs. Thank you for the support. David Harding, welcome to the gang, my friend. Vidmantis K, welcome, brother. Thank you so much for the support. Ciotti, thank you for joining the... What happened here? Mark is unread. There we go. Ciotti, thank you for joining the Patreon, man. I really appreciate it. Killa K9669, welcome, man. You're in the gang. You're also in for some giveaways. Thank you for the extra couple of bucks there. John Smith, you're getting some giveaways too. This coming Monday, hey, if you're on the $3 a month tier and you want the chance to win like $40 or $50 worth of Tiny Whoop stuff, just spend $2 extra. The $5 a month tier will enter you to win every single first Monday of the month in the Tiny Whoop tier. You don't even have to be on the live stream. You might just like get a package in your mailbox halfway through the month with like 50, 60 bucks worth of Tiny Whoop stuff. That was worth the $2 extra a month, right? $2 extra bucks a month, $50 worth of stuff. How many months is that? You'll win eventually. John Smith, thank you for joining the Patreon, brother. Levster, thank you for joining the Patreon as well. And then Adam Kearns, welcome to the gang, fellas. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. It is literally how I've been able to do this for as long as I have. And like I said, I want to keep going. I really, really, really do. And I plan on it. Bruno Arroyo, geez, where'd these come from? Oh, that's a PayPal. Bruno, I think that I gave you a shout out for this, but thank you so much for the $5 PayPal support. Bruno says, depression sucks. Know that you're loved and necessary. You're an amazing human and very important in this world. Thank you for being you. Thank you, brother. It's all of you that allow me to be a much better version of myself. When I worked in an office, I was not a great version of myself. You know, mental health issues do that. When you're miserable, it becomes really, really difficult to hide it. And you think you're hiding it, but you're actually not. And yeah, it's probably a big part of the reason that my marriage kind of fell apart a bunch of years ago. But weirdly, I'm kind of lucky that happened because I met somebody that I'm much sort of more compatible with, and I'm a very lucky guy for the way that things kind of turned out. So just remember, like when shit seems super bad and like you think it's absolute doom and gloom and it's going to be the worst, it could turn out okay. It could suck, but like, there's this saying like everything's going to be okay. That's not true. Everything is not going to be okay. The saying is it's going to be okay. Some things are going to be okay. And so like if you struggle with this shit, it's going to be okay. Some things aren't, but like some things are. And so it's going to be okay. And I'm a really good example of that. I certainly thought that nothing was going to be okay. And a 15-year relationship ending was an utter nightmare, and I thought it was the end, and it was going to be it. Luckily, I'd found a phenomenal talk therapist who was able to help me kind of navigate through that and not, jump off a fucking bridge, literally. So yeah, Todd Houston, thank you for joining the Patreon, brother. And then we've got Adam F. Thank you as well, my friend. Over on CiottiFPV.com, there is a link to the Patreon so that you can jump onto there. There's also a link to my Etsy store. Yo, look at all these cool stickers on my Etsy store. Holographic, tiny little old school logo. Matte, tiny little old school logo. Micro King matte. Small enough for goggles maybe. CiottiFPV in cool holographic. CiottiFPV in matte. Old school Apple. Come on, if you're an old school Apple person, you need this. These are the specific old school Apple colors. Shout out to CMYK for most of these designs. Matte Gangly Gang sticker, holographic Gangly Gang sticker, motherfucking sparkle Gangly Gang sticker. This is my favorite. This one's the shit. Cool, different take on the CiottiFPV kind of logo. I don't think I have any more of these. Big old school holographic. Big matte not holographic. That's actually a magnet. I think those are gone too. There's a sticker version. Kill all carbon. All of you car fans will recognize this. Don't kill tires. Kill carbon. Break your arms. Holographic red. Nut grabber. I think this is gone too. This is not gone. This is glow in the dark, yo. Well, take my word for it. It's glow in the dark. This is one of my favorites, and like nobody has these. Big ass Micro King matte, and then this is actually a window cling. I still have a couple of these, so you can like put this, and it's double sided. You can put this on the inside of your window or the outside of your window, and yeah, you too could be the Micro King. Buy yourself something nice before you don't have any money left, friends. Buy yourself something nice before the end, my friends. You deserve it. Lots more stuff over on the Etsy store. It's linked at CiottiFPV.com. There's a whole bunch of motors over there, too. If there's something that's, like, unreasonably expensive and you're willing to buy it for, like, $5 less, just let me know. I have a bunch of stuff, and it's been on there long enough where, like, it needs to go. There's going to be a set of Fat Shark HD2s going up there soon. There's also going to be a bunch of these Screaming Goats that are going up there. Skydar, thank you for the super chat. I'll read it in 1 second. So yeah, lots of cool stuff for you. And then there's a ton of affiliate links over on CiottiFPV.com. If you're buying something on the internet, someone has an affiliate link. Take a look around at your favorite content creators. Somebody's probably got an affiliate link. Hit it before you check out, and that content creator will get some free money, and they'll keep making stuff for you to watch on YouTube for free. Timon says, heading to Denver to hit some snowboarding, wow, at Breckenridge tomorrow, and a trade show for the new job Monday and Tuesday. Very, very cool. Very, very, very cool. EVFPV says, you're asking too much of capitalism, indeed. Craig says, are HappyModel motors more efficient than others, specifically Newbie Drone? They are indeed. Chris Rosser did a fantastic, eventually, he did a couple of Tiny Whoop motor tests with like old motors that nobody really runs anymore, but then eventually Kevin Sumner and some other folks sent him a bunch of the current Tiny Whoop motors. So if you search YouTube for like Rosser Tiny Whoop motors, I bet you it'll find it. So you're looking for the most recent one, 3 months ago. I think this is the right one. This one, it's just all old school motors. There are also they're not just old school motors, but they are motors that are more for like 75mm builds. But he tested them on the smaller propellers, so it's yeah, not the best data, unfortunately. So here's maximum amount of thrust, and so we can see that the RC and powers are absolute king. But then we've got the Newbie Drone. Well, these are 802s. We're going to jump down here. RC and Power 702. There we go. But look, the Weebleed 702 40,000 is doing really, really, really well here. And then we've got like the Beta FPV 702 30,000 here. And then we've got some of the other HappyModel 702s. So the HappyModel 32,000, 36,000, 40,000 kV 702s, they make really, really, really good power. And then if you come here to the efficiency, the really high kV motors are, of course, they're going to be towards the well, hold on. No, that's motor response. This is the efficiency, right? Was it green? I don't remember it being a green graph. No, yeah, this is the one. So if you take a look, of course, the super efficient motors are going to be ultra low kV. But if we just keep running down here, we've got the Tiny Whoop Moon Traveler 0702 32,000s. Look at that. They're only like the fifth least efficient motor. You've got the 19,000 kV, 21,000 kV, 26,000 kV, 27,000 kV. Of course, those are going to be efficient. They're low kV. But then, bang, you got that Tiny Whoop 32,000 kV. Then you've got the Weebleed Screamer 32,500, which they're just the same motor. And then look, the Weebleed Skirt 40,000 kV 702. Super, super, super efficient. And then we've got the Firefly 0702 36,000. Right, so like all of these top spots for the most efficient motors are these high kV HappyModels, and like those of us that have tested and flown all of these motors, this is the experience that we've all had. Like there are lots and lots and lots of reviews of these motors. If you watch enough of them and look at runtimes, you'll see exactly what we kind of see here and the experience that I've had, which is that yeah, HappyModel does something magical. With the way that they wind or build their motors. It could be the WYE versus Delta winding method. I have heard that the Newbie Drone motors and maybe all of the motors other than the HappyModel, don't quote me on that, but a lot of these Tiny Whoop motors are wound Delta. And apparently the Delta winding setup is better for high throttle use, racing, basically. And then the WYE method apparently is better for lower throttle usage, freestyle, long range, right, general kind of flying. And yeah, so that might have something to do with it. Apparently, I don't know if it's an efficiency thing, but apparently it's a throttle feel thing. And in testing all of these motors, I always come back to the HappyModel motors, and they always feel better. Like when I'm trying to like lock my elevation in and not bounce all over the place like it's my first time flying, the HappyModel motors always make it way easier to lock my elevation down and fly in a way that looks really good and feels really good for me as the pilot. So yeah, I've been ultra impressed by the HappyModel motors, and they have a slightly thicker motor shaft, which is super important because these 1mm motor shafts are nowhere near thick enough, and they just bend way too early, in my opinion. Skydar with a $10 super chat. He says, my 75mm Tiny Whoops are way too fast for indoors. How can I tame them down? Take them out of the 75mm frames and put them in 65mm frames. 75mm Tiny Whoops are for outside. 65mm Tiny Whoops are for inside. The problem is not just how fast they are. The problem is how heavy they are. The weight is a bigger part of the problem. Like, you can just turn motor limiting to 90% or 80% or 70% to take a bunch of power out. Although here's what's super interesting is that 75mm whoops typically make less power than 65mm whoops. 75mm whoops with the big 1.6-inch props, they're not a good match for 1S. The 1S battery voltage is not matched for that big of and draggy of a propeller. So the 65mm rigs actually typically give you more power than the 75s. The problem is the weight. The 75mm frame is bigger, the props are bigger, and so it's heavier. And the hardest thing to do inside the house is slow down. And so with the lighter weight 65mm rigs, they will turn much tighter and much more predictably. They have less weight. You're going in this direction, and then there's a doorway, and you have to turn left. All that weight wants you to keep going forward. The lighter the rig, when you turn it, it's going to want to just turn. It's not going to want to keep washing out. That's the biggest problem with 75 mil rigs. It's actually not the power. You can easily make more power from a 1S 65 millimeter rig than 75, and most of them do. It's all about the weight. So take the camera canopy AIO out of that 75 millimeter frame, buy a Cockroach 65 V3 frame, buy some HappyModel 0702 32,000s or 36,000s or 40,000s from either Weebleed or tinywhoop.com, and you will have something that is way, way, way more enjoyable to fly inside the house. It'll basically have the same amount of power, so you can also fly it outside if you want to, but it's an indoor. 65 is for indoor, 75 is for outdoor. Really, if you're going to go 75, you should go 2S. The 2S 75 millimeter rigs are so much better than 1S flying outside. It's really like an incredible difference. So yeah, that's what's going on. It's a weight problem that you've got. Spoken Dog Cujo with a $10 super chat. No comment. He just wants to support the insanity. Thank you. Well, he did comment. He says, with everyone waiting for Tiny Whoop's 2S batteries, have you ever thought about running the BT 2.0 connector? Tattoo has the 2S with the PH2 connector that should be easy to convert. Oh, running a BT 2.0 but on 2S. I've never thought about doing that. I know that the BT 2.0 connector was very specifically made for 1S. If I was gonna not like, look, XT30 is not that much heavier. If you're desperate to go 2S right now, just do XT30. It's totally fine. You're gonna sacrifice like, it's like a half a gram or something. The main sacrifice is that the XT30 batteries have the balance lead. So this balance lead is like an extra gram. This is really why BT 3.0 is so good, is because you don't have this balance lead. But there's a ton of these 2S batteries that are XT30. My favorites at the moment are the Flywoo 420s. This battery is such an amazing match for the Mobula 8 04 build. But there are also... I think this is... I don't know if there's an even lighter XT30 battery, but yeah, if you can't wait for the Tiny Whoop BT 3.0 300s to come back, I think go XT30, and then you can swap over to BT 3.0 when they do eventually come back in. But yeah, XT30 will be totally fine. You'll be all right. All right, I'm caught up. Let me jump back up and try not to miss a million chat comments. While I'm doing that, I need to be checking screws on this. Ooh, that was loose. Dronesen says, what's up, man? Hope all is well. Craig says, 25 seconds on a 2 minute and 15 second or 135 second runtime is still an 18% improvement. Brian Anderson says, would 96K assist for longer runtime on a chase rig? It might. But the decrease in flight performance of like sacrificing so much motor braking would leave me with builds that were shaking all over the place in the air, and they would never broadcast that. So 48K, as always, is absolutely the way to go. It's the best mix between... I mean, look, there's just a huge... hit in flight performance when you go to 96K because of how much motor braking you lose. And so the only reason for anyone to ever do 96K, as far as I'm concerned, is if it's a long-range rig where you're not collecting any actual footage. You're just seeing how far you can possibly go, and you're not even like DVRing. Oh wow, that motor screw was full-blown loose. So this is why you do screw checks. And so, yeah, 96K is no good. It's really bad that there's a bunch of bind and flies that are shipping on 96K. It is not the way. 96K is not the way. Mikael H says, why are there 3 sizes of rigs called 75 millimeter? 70 millimeter, different prop sizes? Yeah, the naming convention... is a bit of a mess. You know, we say 75 millimeter Tiny Whoop. That 75 millimeter is referencing the motor to motor distance. This is why I try to say 1.6 inch tiny whoop, because 1.6 inch is the diameter of the propeller, which is what we use to denote all of the other rigs, right? We call them 5-inch rigs, not 250 millimeter rigs. Also, you know, different frames will space the motors out differently. So like 75 millimeter tiny whoop is a really stupid thing to call it, but you know, I can't change history. It's what people have been calling them for a long time, and that's kind of is what it is. So yeah, that's what's going on there. It's admittedly very confusing. 65 millimeter tiny whoops, right? That's motor to motor. It's actually a 1.2 inch prop. 75, like one of the most confusing things is that like 75 millimeters, that's a 2.5 inch propeller. And so a 2.5 inch rig, you know, could be called a 75 millimeter rig, but then there's the 75 millimeter tiny whoop, and it's just a mess. So yeah. Levster says, hi, just got Hex 802 27,000 from Tiny Whoop, and one was broken, didn't spin no matter what I did. 2 hours later, I complained and got a mail, one motor sent by Tiny Whoop. This comp is just NR1. I don't know what the end of that means there, but yeah, Tiny Whoop's customer service is great. Jesse always takes care of people, and he keeps like extra motors for exactly that. Like he won't have to send you an entire 4-pack of replacement motors. He has individuals. Craig says, from Wednesday, gold 22%, blue 16%, green / red 24%, average 20.6. Okay, so that's even easier. 20%. 20% additional efficiency between 32,000 kV and 40,000 kV. Craig says happy birthday. Thank you, brother. Craig also says holy shit, indeed. Uriel says congrats. Levster says happy birthday to you. Matthew Wegner says happy birthday. We're now the same age for 5 days of overlap. I'm actually not 30. I'm not 44. I wish to be 34 again. I'm not 44 until April 17th, so we might not overlap. Neuron says happy birthday, another year closer to sweet relief of death. Indeed, I'm 46, so I can. Dronesen says, the last two waivers... Oh, no, we got that. Mike K says, should I go with 1404 4600 or 1507 3800 T-Motor for 4S Volador VX3? Neither. 1404 4600 is good for a lighter weight 3-inch 4S rig, but I think the Volador is pretty heavy. No. Don't run the Volador is not super heavy unless you run the absurd amount of TPU that they give you with it. Don't run the TPU on that Volador, and then those 1404 4600s will be really good. 1507 is a bad motor size. You always want motors that are a ratio of 3:1 width to height. A 1507 is 2:1. That's a motor that's going to annihilate your batteries and run really hot. So yeah, 1507 is a motor size that nobody should ever run. You always want 3:1 or 4:1 or 5:1. The wider a motor is, the cooler it's going to run and the more consistent it's going to be. If you want a motor that every time you go full throttle gives you the exact same amount of power, you want 4:1 ratio of width to height, like a 2306 or a 1404. Yeah, almost 4:1. 3:1 is starting to get a little bit of heat in there, but like a 2207 is a 3:1, and racers use those. So 3:1 is still okay. Going less than 3:1, 2.5:1, or even 2:1 is bad. It leaves you with a super inconsistent motor that runs really hot, and it's the only way to use a motor that's 2:1 or 2.5:1 is if you never go full throttle and you just limp it around. One of the ways that DJI gets a bunch of efficiency from their setups is that they limit the full power potential, the full throttle potential, and then they run these wide motors. What's interesting is, the narrow motors. What's interesting about a 2-to-1 motor is that for the weight of the motor, it can make a lot more power. But if you go full throttle, if you actually push a bunch of current into it, it gets really hot really fast and super inefficient. So if you have like a 1507 motor and you just limp it around and just use the minimum amount of throttle possible, you can actually get really good efficiency with like a 4-inch or a 5-inch prop. It makes no sense for a 3-inch prop. And so, yeah, there you go. Craig says, "Are you an audiophile?" I got into it a long time ago, and then, yeah, little bit. Not really, but a little bit. I dip my toe in, and I find stuff that's as inexpensive as possible, but still really, really good. Like, you can spend a little bit more money than what you can get from like Best Buy, although Best Buy does have some really decent stuff. But if you spend just a tiny little bit of more money, you can get stuff that's like really, really, really nice. And like at that point, you have to spend a ton of. Where I try to be is the point where like stuff gets better. Like you're spending more money, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better. You're spending a little bit more money, and then it really plateaus super hard. And so there's this plateau where you've spent more money and the quality has gotten good, and then you have to spend tons of extra money for it to get any better, and it arguably doesn't really get any better. Like lots of people will swear to God that, you know, the extra $5,000 they spent sounds better, and then you blind test them on it and they can't tell the difference, or they get it completely wrong. And so I try to be right at that knee where it plateaus. Which is, yeah, like you have to spend a little bit of money to get there, but if you shop really smart and you find Facebook Marketplace deals and you have eBay alerts and shit like that, you can get really, really, really nice stuff. I've been desperately looking for JBL Studio 570 floor standers. They are like the highest quality speaker that I can really afford that's going to fit in the enclosures upstairs in the living room. But they are very hard to find. And so that's been like, I've been on the hunt for those for about 1.5 years now. And yeah, haven't found them yet, but I should be able to find them for like $200 to $300. They were like $1,000+ set of speakers. But they should go on eBay or Facebook Marketplace for around $200 to $300. And then they'll hold their value super well. In the basement here, I have a really decent Paradigm setup. Paradigm is a Canadian company that makes really, really nice stuff that's not super overpriced. And I spent a hell of a lot more money than that on this setup. But this was back when I was making like $80, $90 a year. So it wasn't a big deal. And it's an investment. Like if you take good care of them, they'll last a long time. This Paradigm setup is easily over 10 years old, probably closer to like 15 years old. And so, you know, you spread that money out over a whole bunch of years, and like, hey, it's not that insane to spend. Like, I think this set of floor standers down here was like $1,500. They were a lot. But I've gotten a ton of enjoyment out of them over the years. And you know, back then that wasn't that much money. FizzPV says, I'm ADHD with a touch of the tism, and the last 2 days at work sucked. Looking forward to the live. A couple years ago, got out of a shitty marriage, had a wonderfully supportive woman. Welcome to the shit show, my friend. FizzPV says, not bad. Have now, I'm not going to say that. EUC NFPV says, new build Cockroach V3, wheel lead 702, 32,500, HappyModel 2G4, AIO, Meteor Canopy, CO3, ORT Micro V, HQ Ultralight Bi-Blades, and I love it. Thanks for all the recommendations. You're welcome, man. Those are a lot of my favorites, too. Really good stuff. Smoking Dog Cujo says, while everyone is waiting for Tiny Whoop's 2S batteries, have you ever thought about running... Oh, no, we talked about that. EVFPV says, sigh, F drones. My two are fine, but Izzy's are having issues. Well, I mean, did you expect any less trying to do anything the day before an event? They'll be fine on, if the event's tomorrow, they'll be fine on Sunday. Just put them down, and then on Sunday, pick it back up, and everything will have fixed itself, because that's how electronics and/or FPV works. Red Plump says, I have a Meteor 75 Pro. After a big hit, the camera is just gray with an OSD on top. Is it the same if I swap the camera to another drone? Is the camera borked, or is it repairable? So think about it, Red. You've got OSD. Where does the OSD come from? It's the AIO. The AIO is what you've got your camera, and there's wires from the camera to the AIO, and then the AIO either has wires to an external VTX, or it just has the VTX on board. On the flight controller, on the AIO, is the OSD. It's the big rectangular chip. And so you've got a gray screen, the camera's dead, but you've still got OSD. If you had static, no OSD, that would mean that your AIO is blown up. It might mean that the camera is also blown up, but you would know that either the AIO or the external VTX is blown up, right? So you got lucky. The camera is the cheapest thing, and the camera is what has shit the bed there. So wiggle the wires around, make sure the plug didn't come out, but you probably blew up the camera. Cameras take a horrendous amount of abuse. So yeah, you got off easy. You got the cheapest possible repair there. FizzPV says, isn't there a BT 3.0? Yep, and that's what the Tiny Whoop 300 mAh batteries are, and that's why everybody's so desperate to get a hold of them. Level 1 Drone says, Patreon is well worth it as a thank you. Got 30,000 kV motors for my 65mm Meteor. It was a whole different whoop. I don't know if I want to motor limit them down. Such a joy to finally enjoy 65mm. Motor limiting is really nice, and you can change it in the OSD, so you can like motor limit, fly a bunch of batteries, pop it up a couple percent, you know. Higgy47 says, how's your day been? Weird. I was shitting I was stuck in the bathroom all night, so I didn't end up going to sleep until like 8 a.m. I think. So I didn't get much sleep, but I did a bunch of testing. Nothing caught on fire, which is always great. Yeah, I got lots of packing to do here tonight for this live broadcast event tomorrow. But I love it. Chasing these Criterium Cup cyclists is an absolute blast. It's a huge challenge, but it's very, very fun. And, you know, a live stream that's being viewed by thousands and thousands and thousands of people that has like a professional TV truck and a team of super talented folks cutting this footage up to make like a really cool live broadcast that has my flying dropped in damn near every lap. Like that's amazing. Mike K says, don't forget about the Meteor Pros, the 65mm. Yeah, right. The 65mm is 35mm props instead of 31mm props, and the 75 is 45mm props instead of 40. Yeah, the naming convention in Tiny Whoop is dumb beyond the bounds of rational thought. It's just so stupid. And Beta FPV made it way more confusing with the 65 Pro and the 75 Pro. Like it's just dumb. Higgy says, happy birthday. Thank you, brother. Dave Gunna says 44 also on the 24th. Very cool. Bunch of middle-aged motherfuckers in here. Skydar, thank you again for the $10 super chat. Craig says, regarding money on audio equipment, I completely agree. Game Cinna says, do you live in Canada? Not yet. Boy, do I wish. Although, boy, is it cold up there. You never know. You never do know. If it gets bad enough here in the U.S., especially when it comes to trans stuff, Canada is very high on the list. Maggie and I have been talking about and looking at places to move to, because it's looking like it's going to get it's already getting really nasty, and it's looking like it's going to get way more nasty. So we'll see. This is going to be just heartbreaking, just absolutely heartbreaking to see so many good people getting screwed over for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Shameful. Ashamed to be an American. Islander FPV says, if you want him to answer your question, Hummingbird V4 seems like the best value in Whoop, but needs a battery connector swap to BT 2.0, which means a little swapping, little soldering rather. Where's Travis? Travis says, is the Hummingbird V4 a good starter Whoop? For sure. Or should I start like with something like a V3? Absolutely not. Maybe grab an RS version for outdoors. Nope. Hummingbird V4 is the way to go. They finally fixed the video problem, so you can see where you're going basically, yeah. The annoying thing about newbie drone rigs is they use very specific motor plugs, so you're not going to be able to like easily swap over to HappyModel motors. So like if the Hummingbird V4 is the perfect starting point. You buy it, you fly it, you don't worry about upgrading it, you just fly it. And like your first couple of years in FPV, you need to focus on flying, not upgrading, not tuning, not any of the other shit. The flying part is the hardest part. And the quicker you get over that first hurdle of how difficult it is to fly these things, the better the experience that you'll have. When you're new and you start upgrading shit, you suck so bad as a pilot that none of the upgrades make any difference. And to be honest, they make it worse because you've been flying with one setup and you've been developing a little bit of muscle memory, and then you change something, and then you change something else. And every time you change something else, that muscle memory is not wasted, but like you're not gonna, your progress is gonna be, if you don't change anything, your progress is gonna be like this. When you change stuff, there's a change. There's a change. There's a change. You're making it harder for yourself to get good as a pilot. And the changes that you're making and the tuning that you're doing don't matter because you're not good enough yet. And so the Hummingbird V4 is actually a really, really cool starting point. It's cheap. It's going to limit you with how many changes you can make, and you can just focus on flying it. Changing the battery lead from PH 2.0 to BT 3.0, it's going to get you more power and more runtime. It's not absolutely essential, but like what's annoying is that if you don't change it, you're going to have to buy a bunch of PH 2.0 batteries. And then when you change it to BT 2.0, inevitably, you're going to have to buy a bunch of different batteries. Tiny Whoop batteries don't last all that long anyway. So, like, you're going to have to be replacing batteries regardless, but it's just super annoying. I really, really, really wish that they had put a A30 or BT 2.0 connector on that Hummingbird V4, because other than that, it's phenomenal. Like, that is a legitimate problem that I have with it. Not just me, but it's insane that they did that. I understand why, but yeah, that is like the one problem with that. The Beta FPV Air 65 or the HappyModel Mobula 6 2024 are going to be builds that are able to be upgraded down the road more easily. And so that's going to like trick you into upgrading it, which is kind of a bad thing. They're also going to be more expensive. But they do come with BT 2.0 and A30 battery connectors. So you can't go wrong either way. All three of these are the best flying tiny whoops of all time. And they fly about as good as the Ultimate Freestyle Tiny Whoop formula that took me years to develop. And so you really can't go wrong with either one. The Hummingbird V4 is amazing, and it's cheap, and it's from Newbie Drones, so it's a California company that you can like call and email, and they'll help you out and shit like that. And it's going to limit your upgrades a little bit. So there's a lot of really good things about that Hummingbird V4, and it runs totally fine on the PH 2.0 batteries, especially as a new pilot. A year from now, you will be desperate to get that PH 2.0 off of there. By then, any batteries that you have are long gone. So nothing wrong with starting with that rig. But if you want to kind of future-proof yourself, the Mobula 6 2024 or the Beta FPV Air 65 are the way to future-proof yourself. And if you just want to buy one thing that you can live with forever, it's one of those two. you're not going to live with it forever. It's going to break before then. This is the other thing. Like, tiny whoops break. Everything in FPV breaks. We crash the shit out of it. And so, like, as your first build, buying something that you think you're going to keep for the next 5 years, no way in hell. You're going to lose it in a tree, you're going to lose it on a rooftop, you're going to lose it in the river, or it's just going to blow up. So, like, $80 for the Hummingbird V4 is just incredible. It really, really, really is. And then that was your first rig. If you outgrow it, so be it. But you can just swap you can upgrade it. I haven't upgraded mine a lot yet, but I could. I would just have to change the motor connectors on another set of motors. It's not like the end of the world. But can't go wrong with any of those three. Cole Power says, I motor limit by not using the top of the throttle. I mean, that's one way to do it. That's going to make your flight footage look worse, and it's going to make your job as a pilot harder. But most people do that. Most people would rather have the bragging right of using linear throttle versus having their flight footage look better and or in my opinion having a better experience as a pilot. So you're probably kind of in the majority there. It's not for me, you know. I do as much as I can with gear selection and tuning in Betaflight to help me as a pilot. I am not the best pilot. I'm not even close. But I do some things that allow my flight footage to make me look like a lot better pilot than I actually am. That matters to me. People that are just flying for fun, who cares, right? If the bragging rights of using linear throttle is more fun than your flight footage looking a little bit better, fucking linear throttle all day, right? There is nothing wrong with that. So, yeah. Properly using, the other thing is that properly setting throttle expo is difficult. You got to spend some time understanding it by watching those live streams I've done about them. And then you've got to spend a bunch of time dialing it in. And if that's not fun to you, don't do it. Just fly linear and you know, whatever's the most fun, that's what you should do. As somebody that's about to turn 44 years old, you know, what's the secret to life? There it is. The shit that's the most fun for you, do that as much as you possibly can. Leave the other stuff behind. Game Cinna says, what are a good box goggle to upgrade to? I currently own the VR 009, and it's just really cheap box goggle. You can search UP and has bad range. What are goggles that will last? So you want to get away from box goggles unless you have a very specific reason for them. You want to go to the standard smaller goggle setup. If nothing else, then double screen, I should say. If nothing else, then these smaller goggles, the focal distance is much deeper. The biggest problem that I had with box goggles is the distance that it makes you focus on is very close, and it really fucked up my eyes. I used Eachine VR 007s, I think they were, for almost 2 years when I first started FPV like 9 years ago. And on my drive home from flying, I would not be able to focus on like license plates and cars in front of me. Like my eyes were just fucked from the short focusing distance from those box goggles. And getting into a set of Fat Shark HD2s just really helped. I never had that issue again. Skyzone right now is like the company that's killing it with goggles. So take a look at a bunch of Skyzone goggle reviews from Joshua Bardwell. He's like the main reviewer that you want to pay attention to when it comes to goggles. And yeah, get yourself something. There's a bunch of used goggles. If you can find like a used set of Fat Sharks, they are awesome. They always will be. I'm going to have a set of Fat Shark HD2s on my Etsy store pretty soon. So yeah, a lot of different options, but you want to get away from box goggles, in my opinion. Yamasaur says, are you getting any of the new VCI motors? Apparently they're supposed to be super light and have efficiency approaching or around HappyModel. Maybe I got to be super careful right now. I just had a whole bunch of unexpected shit, right? Like the hard drives that failed. It ended up costing me like $600 to get back up on my feet there. I'm moving this live broadcast setup that I've got over to O4, which is costing me some money. And so I don't know. We'll see. I'm so happy with the HappyModel motors that I'm totally willing to like wait. And if like a bunch of people are saying that the new once the VCIs come out, if there's a bunch of people saying that they're God's gift to Tiny Whoop motors, yeah, I'll probably be willing to spend $40 or whatever on them. But I'm not gonna like jump and buy them right away because the HappyModel motors are just so damn good. Kevin Sumner says, "Are you doing Rock Hill BMX again this year?" So that was they only do it every 4 years because it feeds into the Olympics. So probably not. The UCI, the company that hired me to do it last year, they don't cover that BMX every year. They only cover it with the years that it's feeding into the Olympics. Is it 4 years or 8 years? The Olympics are every 4 years, but don't they oscillate between summer and winter Olympics, or do they do that every other year? I don't know. I think it is. So I think 3 years from now, I'll hopefully do that again. Hopefully they remember me. Bolilo says, I'm the only one that bought the drone from your Etsy store. It was supposed to come today, but unfortunately USPS is awful. Hopefully it's here tomorrow. You'll dig it, man. I flew it a little bit before I sent it back out to you because I changed the motors, and I forgot how good that rig flies. That it flies every bit as good as all these 2G4 builds. That thing is rocking. You're gonna dig it, man. It's worth the wait. Game Cinna says Halifax is a good place. That's where I'm at. Very cool. Islander FPV says, have you ever put protective film on the lens of a Tiny Whoop camera? My CO3s never break but get scratched enough that I have to replace them. Kind of annoying. I have not. Usually the protective film won't like a domed surface like that. And I don't think anybody makes protective film that's cut small enough for that. I don't have much of a problem with scratching lenses. I had that one HD0 lens get scratched, but that's it. Look, how are you mounting them? Try to find a mounting setup that pulls the lens back a little bit. One of the really cool things that I had Timmons do on the Batwing mounts is to put these little flower petal looking scallops on them to protect the lens. This is something that has been done in photography forever, not for lens protection, but to block any direct light sources. And so yeah, try to get your if you have CAD knowledge, whatever, if you're running a 3D printed mount, you can do this. You can put these little jib jabs, top and bottom, top, bottom, left and right, and that'll protect the lens a little bit. Or just, you know, look for a mount like the Mobula 6 setup here with the Runcam Nano 3, the lens is recessed all the way back in there, so that lens can pretty much never get scratched. You know what I mean? So yeah, look at your canopy setup and try to find something that'll allow you to pull the lens back a little bit. Maybe you can DIY it even. Craig says, I actually like the Air 65 more than the Hummingbird V4. Smoother flight, better flight times. It depends on which Air 65. The Hummingbird V4 has those 30,000 kV Newbie drone motors, which make really good power. I mean, my Hummingbird is also upgraded. Like, if your Hummingbird V4 is stock, you got to get that canopy off of there. That canopy they ship it with is way too heavy. Get it onto a Bri-Brain mount. It makes a huge difference. Maybe I'll do I should do a Hummingbird V4 versus Air 65 versus Mobula 6 2024 Smackdown video at some point here. Uriel says, imagine to be Dutch, arg. Okay. Cole Power says, glad to hear the Newbie Drew and Hummer V4 recommendation. I just ordered 2 of them. I use your affiliate link. Thank you, brother. And noted in checkout. Even better. Thank you, dude. Very cool of you. Craig says, great starting advice on whoops. Thank you, man. Game Cinna says, I finally found my stack of wires. It was only my spare wires. I had to fix my tiny whoop. It was my only spare wires. I misread that. He also says, shoot, I don't mean box goggles. I mean, what are the best goggle to upgrade to that will last a long time? Same answer. And there's no best. There's just different. You know, you could argue that the HD Zero goggles are the best. They're certainly the most expensive, but I would absolutely not consider them the best for a lot of people. A lot of people don't need these, right? And so there is no best. There's just different. My recommendation from a minute ago is exactly the same, though. The Sky Zone goggles are absolutely amazing. Old school Fat Sharks used are a hell of a deal. If you care about DVR, it's the Sky Zone goggles. The Fat Shark DVR is worthless. But yeah, watch a bunch of Bardwell reviews on goggles and you'll learn lots. Also, look at his website, FPV Know-It-All. There's a goggle section in there with lots of really good info. Danzel the Terrible and Game Cinna are both asking about the HD2s. I don't know how much I'm going to sell them for. When I finally have a chance to take pictures of them, put them up on there, I'm just going to go in like Facebook Marketplace and see if I can find, and on eBay and see what other people are selling them for, and like kind of try to get that same amount. Fat Shark HD2. So here's a little hint. What people have stuff listed for doesn't matter, right? Because it might never sell. So here's what you do. You do the search and then you scroll down and in show only, sold items. Show only sold items. This is how you actually determine what something is worth. And so now we're going to go price highest first. So $325, that's probably with a module. Yeah, mine are not going to come with a mod. Well, I think they are gonna come with a module, but it's a shitty module. It's like the old school module. Wow, was that it? Oh no, there's more. Okay, so $285. That's probably with a module. $261. Well, this is exactly what I'm going to be selling. It's this exact same old school module, and it looks like this sold for Jesus 200. I will not sell them for that much. It'll be around $200. The module works, but it's not like these fancy new modules. Dominators for $250, HDO2s for $320. Jesus, $405. Yo, Fat Sharks hold their value. Good lord. One of the cool things about Fat Sharks is like you can buy a set now and then in a couple years sell them for exactly what you bought them for. Because as you can see, they hold their value really, really well. $230, $250, $230. $387, but it's with rapid fire. You know, this rapid fire module here it used to be like, I don't think you can buy it anymore, but it used to be like $150. So yeah, I'll probably put them up for like $200, $220 or so, somewhere in there. I think that's somewhat fair. But I gotta sleep on it and look for more than 14 seconds. Frank Nicholas says, I just received a 3-pack of these for DJI Goggles 3 and Cosmo Streamer. I'll send you one in the next week or so. What you got? Oh, very cool. Very, very, very cool. Thank you, dude. Yeah, I gotta start figuring this out. Speaking of Frank Nicholas, he very kindly sent me a Raspberry Pi to help me on this getting set up with O4 live broadcast setup. And some other really fun stuff, including one of the super fancy Apple Thunderbolt cables and a couple of hubs. I'm using the one hub already. I just haven't had time to like actually plug stuff into it and do speed tests. But I like also he sent me something hysterical. a newbie drone Acro B brushed ELRS. How the hell is newbie drone making express LRS brushed tiny whoops? That's insane. So yeah, I'll figure something cool. I'll probably do an entire live stream on, like, yo, we got it good. Check out the difference between brushed and brushless. Maybe I'll even convert that to BT 2.0 to give it like as good of a as much of a shot as possible of being decent. Thanks again, Frank. That box had so much useful stuff. Much appreciated. Craig with a $20 super chat. He says, large vote for newbie drone Hummingbird 4 versus Air 65 versus Mobula 2044. Yeah, I have to do it. I have to do it. Denzel the Trouble says, I'll give you 200 for the goggles. That might do it. I just need to, not when I'm on live stream, like, look through those. And because I know a bunch of those are like HDO2s. What I really want to find is a set of HD2s with, like, not a fancy module, and see what they actually sold for. But 200 will probably do it. Craig says, the brushed ELRS drone was my first drone. Nice. All right, I'm caught up on chat, and I knew I was going to forget to continue to tighten screws on these things, but I'll do it on the couch tonight when I'm trying to calm the hell down so that I can maybe get some sleep. I got to be awake at, like, I think like 7:30, maybe. No, I got to be awake at like 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'm actually going and picking my dad up. Since my dad's in town, he's free tomorrow. So I'm going to drive south to Stone Mountain and pick him up, and then west to Alabama. And then he's going to be like my assistant / just hang out and have fun. So that'll be super cool. Dronzen says, Beta FPV has a brushed board out. They're being tested too. I wonder why they're trying to bring them back. Probably because they know how bad it's about to get. And nobody's going to have money for brushless. That's weird that they're doing a new one. That's, I would not... that is unexpected. All right, so I've got a whole mess of stuff that I am moving around and changing motors and all kinds of stuff. This is the one that I got done with the other night, though. So let's fly this really quick. This is Cockroach 65 V3 frame. I need to remember to bring this module, actually, tomorrow. 2G4, Tiny Whoop Moon Traveler motors, which are HappyModel 0702 32,000 kV. HQ 1.2 inch by 0.9 pitch by 3 tri-blades. And a Runcam Nano 3 camera on a batwing mount with a True RC Singularity antenna. So this is basically like an analog cinematic rig designed to go really slow. And so yeah, we should see good quality, like decent analog quality video. Although you guys are looking through kind of a shitty VRX. For me, I'm looking through Rapid Fire, which is like amazing. And so like, I'll try to give you an idea. A play-by-play. Oh boy. As to when it starts getting staticky for me. But yeah, this should be like the best possible combination of analog image quality minus the camera. The Runcam Nano 3 is not considered to be like the best camera from a quality standpoint, but like I don't know, man. I've always thought that it gives just as much detail as any of the other analog cameras. Wow, it is crystal clear up here. I don't have any breakup. Usually I get some breakup when I go all the way up to the loft area. Oh my god. I mean, like the tiniest little bit. Yo, this True RC Singularity is doing work. And I think this is only on 25 million watts. Let's take a look. Yep, 25 million watts. It's yeah, that's the magic of the 2G4. So yeah, this thing is ready to go, man. This thing is ready to chase little RC drift cars all day, every day. This will probably be my main analog rig. Stop crashing it, you idiot. This will probably be my main... Oh my god, Teddy, your face was right there. Analog rig. Although now all of a sudden the video quality looks like ass. Did I knock the antenna off? No. The video quality got like little tiny wavy lines in it all of a sudden. Now it's... Nope, now it's... Yeah, what the hell happened? God damn it, why did I have to crash it? It looks terrible now! Are you guys seeing that? Are you guys seeing those little vertical squiggly lines all over the place? God damn it. This way you don't crash your cinematic rigs, yo. I'm most curious about what kind of runtime this will do. Hey. Hey, stop it. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. This is a 300 mAh BT 2.0 battery. I think it's a Weebleed. Might be a tattoo. Batwing mount all the way up front to get the ducts out of view and get the camera as low to the ground as possible. Today, you're in a bad spot. 33%. Let me check the throttle expo. 35. Drop that down a little bit to 33. Actually add a little bit more. Since these are higher kV motors, I'm going to add a little more. Yeah, there's like rainbow lines now that there weren't a minute ago. What the hell? What's that about? It's from that big crash. What happened? Jesus. Did the camera come like a little bit unplugged or something? The fuck happened here? Can you guys see that? Yeah, it got worse. What the hell? What's that about? Let's power cycle it. That won't do anything. Oh, you know what? It could be antenna placement. Hold on, let me move the antenna. The antenna was sitting right next to the elrs antenna. No, I can still see it. I move the antenna a bunch away. There it goes away. Wow, yeah, it's an antenna placement thing. It's elrs. Well, that's good to know. All right, so let me stand this antenna up. Oh, nope. The hell? What happened? This 2G4 board might just be like old and moldy. Some of these 2G4 boards are just ruined. What's with all the goddamn rainbows, bro? The camera? Push on the camera to see if that does anything. Well. Oh, I just zeroed out. I unplugged it and that zeroed out the runtime. Oh my god, it's a hot mess now. Where fucking am I? What's happening? What is this weird Rainbow Road fucking world I'm in right now? Teddy, help me. Teddy, back up. Oh my god, dog. Oh, there's low battery. Oh god, the battery's dead. Yo, what is the deal? Why did it, everything, what? Hold on, let's put a fresh battery on it. Could it be battery voltage related? I doubt it. What the hell happened? All right, let's see. Fresh battery. Oh my god! It's like broken. What has happened to you? Little tiny whoop. What is? All right, hold on. I'm gonna start pushing on things. Start pushing on parts of the AIO. Try to figure out. Oh my god. Okay, well, I think this is a freestyle 2G4. This is not a cinematic 2G4. All right, let's see. I'm going to push on the bottom. Oh boy. Yeah, okay. So the VTX on this 2G4 is on its way out. Jesus. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There it is. When I push on that part of the board, it just goes up. I thought it might have just went all the way. Okay, well, there's that. Oh well. I get to take it apart again. So yeah, I'll run this. I'll swap this AIO over into a build that video quality doesn't matter, and freestyle it until it explodes. Great. What is this? Did I make another? Oh, that's the HD0 build. All right, now HD0 build is done. All right, so that's the one that I wanted to fly. That seemed to be getting really good runtime, so I'm happy with that. Skydar says, camera went out on my DJI O4 Lite after a crash on the Mavic 7. Can't find a replacement cam anywhere. Any suggestions? I have not seen the replacement cameras either. But contact DJI. Apparently they've been fixing them. Denzel the Turbo says, is there a difference between the HDO2 and the HD2? Yeah, OLED screens. HDO, the O is for OLED screens. HD2 is like regular old LCD screens. Craig says, I tried a Singularity True RC antenna, but it kept unconnecting on hits. I think I purchased too long a lead. All you got to do is put a blob of E6000 on top of the UFL, and you'll be good to go. Benny Bravo says, how much does placement matter for ELRS/VTX antennas in relation to each other? It doesn't not matter, but it's not usually like the biggest deal in the world. Especially because one of them is transmitting and the other is receiving, right? So it really shouldn't matter at all, but it tends to matter like a little bit, just a little bit. If possible, you want to try to get them away from each other a little bit. If it's not possible, then don't even worry about it, and you should be totally fine. But ideally, you always want to try to keep antennas away from one another. It shouldn't affect the video much, because the video antenna is transmitting and the ELRS antenna is receiving. It shouldn't affect the ELRS because the video antenna is on 5.8 and then ELRS is on 2.4. But when you have an antenna transmitting anywhere near a receiving antenna, you know, it's not going to have no effect, but it just doesn't have much. Hopefully that makes some sense. I just backtracked 18 ways from Sunday. So this is the Mobula 6 2024. And at some point, I am going to be putting these 40,000 kV HappyModel motors on it. But now that I kind of want to do a comparison video of this versus the Air 65 versus the Hummingbird V4, I think I'm going to wait. This currently has 36,000 kV motors on it, which are very similar to in power to the Beta FPV and the other motors. So I'm going to actually wait here. I'm going to leave this thing together. I'm going to put these 40,000s aside. And yeah, at some point I will swap the motors out on this. But for right now, and in order to remind myself, I have to take 3 of these builds and put them next to each other. So let me do that. 1, 2, and 3. And so I'll put these 3 guys right here to the left of my desk as a reminder. Cool. This is gonna need this, and okay. This is the walk snail rig that the AIO died on, so I have to swap the entire AIO, which is like a complete pain in the ass. So, hold on. Oh. I was wondering why my monitor looked so weird. It was still zoomed in. Oh my god, I only have 10 minutes left? Shit. Mike K says, do you use a prop popper? These small props suck to take off. Yep. Without a prop popper, you're going to hurt your motors. I like the clone popper the best. The all-metal version of this is also really, really good. And then if you order anything from my Etsy store, I will throw in a free, with all orders, although I think I forgot on one of the orders. I'm super pissed. But everything that you order from my Etsy store, or if you have a 3D printer, you'll get a Propodial. And this makes taking the little props off a lot easier. The prop poppers are the best bet, though. They're the absolute best way of removing tiny whoop propellers. But the Propodial is a close second place. So the biggest thing that I have to do on this is direct solder this plug onto this camera. And so let me see if I can maybe do that before the end of this live stream, which is super annoying because I just soldered these raw wires onto here because I was going to use this on an AIO that you have to direct solder to. But then I realized that AIO kind of had a noisy video system, and I changed my mind. So this is a Beta FPV CO3 camera, and the leads, the through holes are outrageously small. But luckily I've got nerd goggles and I'm pretty good at soldering. So let's get it on here. Even though this camera is now a lot lower, this is still going to be a hell of a struggle for you to see what I'm doing because this is just ultra, ultra, ultra small. But the basics of soldering are that get yourself a flux syringe and flux everything. There's almost no such thing as too much flux. Flux is going to prevent the tip of the soldering iron from oxidizing, and it's going to clean the solder joint, which leads to a quicker heat transfer. You're going to take the soldering iron out of the little stand, and you're going to clean it every time. Don't clean it when you put it back in its stand. Clean it when you take it out of its stand. Take it out, clean it. Make sure that your work is in a position that makes sense. I love this little OmniFixo for that reason. I can move the work to me instead of moving me to the work. And then we're going to desolder the red, the black, and the video. red, black video. I'm going to put these wires over here to my left in that orientation. And so now I'm going to try to really kind of freeball this. I'm just going to go for it. We're going to go... with through holes, it can be really difficult because you can either look at one side or the other. I prefer to look at the open side if the through holes have solder in them. One way to do this is to use solder wick, remove all of the solder from these through holes, put the wire in, and then dump solder. I usually have pretty good luck leaving the solder in the through hole, touching the soldering iron to the back of the through hole. I'm looking at the front, and so I can just sit here and poke the wire until I get it in there, and then push it through the through hole and keep it nice and steady. You could make a good argument for either one or the other being easier. Kind of dealer's choice, I think. When you're doing through holes, you got to make sure that the wires that you're putting into them are tightly bundled together. And so that's what I'm doing now. This little bundle of wires is a little bit too wide. Let's see if I can make it work, though. Back side of the hole, apply heat. Nah, it's too wide. So I need to get this little bundle of wires here a little bit tighter. So what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of solder on the tip of the iron. I'm going to put the little bundle of wires down on this work surface and just push down on it. There we go. There we go. Now it's nice and round. So we're going to come to the back of this pad here, through hole rather. Balls. I wasn't quick enough. Oh, there we go. Keep poking at it until you find the hole. Alright, and I pushed on it too many times, and now the bundle of wires like fanned out again, so we got to do this again. Okay. Yes, I absolutely did say, with a straight face, keep poking at it until you find the hole. That was not by accident. It's just good life advice. Alright, let's try this again. There we go. Oh, nope. Almost. Ground pads are always going to be a little bit more challenging because they are connected to the ground plane, which is an entire layer of copper. And so you always got to be a little patient when you're working on the ground pads. And there we go. Now we're good. And now voltage. And we're all set. All right, and now the last thing you want to... I'm skipping a lot of steps here for the record. Last thing you want to do is check your work with some kind of magnification. My favorite is a little 5x loupe. L-O-U-P-E. It's beautiful, Clark. It's beautiful. That came out really nice. Nice shiny solder joints. Ideally, you don't want your solder joints to be super dull, but it's really not the end of the world if they are. As long as they're smooth. You don't want your solder joints to be all craggy and have like sharp angles in them. You want them to be nice and smooth. A smooth solder joint is a strong solder joint. It's more important that the solder joints be smooth than they be shiny. A dull joint that's nice and rounded and nice and smooth is way stronger than a shiny joint that's got all kinds of weird angles and shit going on in it. Twist these wires up to make them a little bit shorter. Oops, I just twisted it the wrong way. There we go. All right, cool. So this is going to go into this batwing mount. And you want to push it from the lens. You don't want to push from the PCB. These lenses are just glued to these PCBs, so never... always remember that this joint here between the plastic lens and the PCB is very easy to break. And so if I'm just pushing forward, it's okay. So I can push forward without hurting it. And now I got to get it rotated correctly in the mount. Almost there. That looks about right. Yep, it's pretty good. Here's a 2G4. Keep in mind, you're going to want to run the plug up through the bottom so that the wires aren't too damn long. Let me see if I can mount this board backwards, though. There's 9 o'clock. See if I can mount this board backwards. So the battery lead up front. And then, because this is a fairly long lead here. This is one of the ways to kind of help with the CG. Oh, I can. Look at that. All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to mount this board like that. And I'm going to run this camera wire up here. All right. This is going to kind of be a pain in the ass if I'm honest, but we'll be all right. I'm going to take a half a twist out of this camera wire because I need it to plug in here. Oh, balls. This is the wrong plug. I used the wrong plug. I'm a dum-dum. Well, just pretend like I plugged that in and everything was fine. This is the this is JST 1.25. I need JST 1.0, or it might be the other way around. Oh wait, no, that's the right one. I was gonna say, what the hell? I've done this too many times to make that rookie ass mistake. Well, now I need to unplug it again. Because, yeah, you need to, I mean, you don't need to, but I like to run it through this part of the frame here. Just to keep the wires out of the way. Because, like, there's a lot going on down there. You got the battery. You got all kinds of shit happening. Alright, so there's that. And then we're going to run the battery lead up front here, too. Come on. And so now we can just drop this down. Alright, so what you want to do with this plug on the 2G4 is put that in first. Put that down. It just needs to clear the top of the duct. The top of the duct is sits out farther. And so put that side down first, and then deal with the other grommets falling off. And then mash the other side down and you'll be fine. Oh, now I got the antenna going forward, though. That's kind of annoying. Whatever. I'll just put an angle on it like that. It'll be like a little hooker. And so now we'll actually get to see if this wire is long enough. It might be. Yeah, wow, it's just barely long enough. But, man, yeah, that'll work. And then the batwing mount here. You don't want to. You got to be careful of these little plastic hooks on the frame. Don't just mash this mount down onto the hook. Try to like put your thumbnail on the hook and push the hook up into the mount, rather than pushing the mount down onto the hook, because it's thin plastic and you don't want to break it off. Let's try this side first. Man, this camera cable is like just short enough. I should have maybe put this. I should have put this batwing mount on first, and then plug the camera into the AIO. I'm doing this a little bit out of order here. But let's see if I can get it. Hey, there we go. There's one side. And here comes the other side. I haven't broken a set of these hooks off yet, but I have a couple where I can like see the plastic starting to fatigue a little bit. There we go. Oh boy, that is just barely long enough. I kind of wish I had the BT 2.0 plug on the other side. But then that would push these wires towards, yeah, this is maybe fine. Too late now. So let's see if a battery will squeeze through there. So the reason why I'm doing it this way with the battery lead out the front is that we've added a bunch of weight to the front of this build with the camera and the TPU. And so by putting the battery mount up front, I can push the battery really far back. See that? See how far back I can push the battery? So if you look at it from the top, we got the extra weight of the camera up front, but then we got the extra weight of the battery out back. And so the CG is actually relatively balanced on this thing when you do that. It's a little bit annoying because you got all this garbage up in the front, and it kind of makes it annoying to plug this in and whatnot, but it'll make it perform better and it'll make it fly better. And this is actually totally fine. This camera wire is out of the way, and it's like the exact right length. And so, yeah, there we go. A 2G4 with a CO3. Sweet. Plug these motors in and away we go. But we'll save that for next Wednesday. Let me get caught up on chat, and then I gotta start packing my shit. I gotta get some food first. I'm starving. Limit says, what do you think of the new Tiny Whoop motors? Are they more powerful or more efficient than the old ones? Nope, exactly the same. I missed a few streams. I guess you reviewed them already. Yeah, I love that the motor shaft is locking. The only thing I don't love about them is they are shorter. So you have to run motor mount spacers. And what's interesting is you're going to run a 1mm spacer, but then if you're using the Cockroach V3 or Lite AF frame, you don't have to use the ultra short hardware that they come with. You can use regular old Tiny Whoop motor mount hardware with the 1mm spacer on those frames. If you try to run them with the spacer on any of the other frames, you're going to have to buy longer hardware, which is super annoying. But the Cockroach frames are the good ones. But there's no difference in performance to the old school Tiny Whoop motors. Cole Power says, I bet someone could make a printed prop popper. Too late! Game Cine says, the frame that you're using, I know it's the lightest frame, but where do we get it? Do you sell it, or is it on AliExpress? I don't think it's on AliExpress. You're going to buy it from Newbie Drone. It's the Newbie Drone Cockroach V3 or the Newbie Drone Lite AF. And you're going to buy it from Newbie Drone. You can there's a bunch of places that sell them, though. TinyWhoop.com sells them. Weebleed sells them. So, yeah, they're all over the place. Craig says, you make soldering look so easy. I'm still learning to solder such small stuff. Yeah, it's soldering small stuff. It's really important to not skip anything. Always flux. Always get your this part of your hand down on the table surface. Always clean the tip of the soldering iron when you take it out of the stand. If you skip anything when you're doing small work, it goes from being like a pain in the ass to impossible. And so you got to do all the fundamentals when you're doing really small work. In order for it to actually, if you don't move the work to you and you're trying to get your arm all weird, it's going to be impossible. So it's those basics that you need to really focus on for doing small work, and then it's just doing a bunch of it. It's just doing it over and over and over again. You'll get better. Cool. Smirk says, how you been? I've been all right, man. The question mark at the end of CiottiFPV didn't make it tag me, but I just happened to see it. Thanks for hanging, friends. CiottiFPV.com to support me and for lots of fun stuff. I'll be back on Sunday at 3 o'clock. I'll see you then. Love you, bye! I'm not ready. Here's some 1080, 120 frame a second RC drift car chasing from last Wednesday. Bye!